Dharmesh Sheth is here. Good to see you, Dharmesh. Yeah, let's start with Ruben Amorim then, the new Manchester United head coach. So, Dharmesh, Man United moved really, really quickly. How do they get this done?
Yeah, that's an understatement. They move really quickly, really efficiently, and it should be said here that Manchester United only spoke to Ruben Amorim since Erik ten Hag signed that contract in July, that contract extension in his contract. Before that, it was an open secret that Manchester United were talking to a lot of managers while they were conducting that post-season review on whether Erik ten Hag was going to stay at the football club or not. But once they decided that they were going to keep Erik ten Hag, and listen, they wanted him to stay and they wanted it to work, but it's not worked. And I think they've admitted that it hasn't worked simply because they decided, Erik, thanks, but no thanks, and they sacked him on Monday. And from then, they've moved very, very quickly. Yes, they've done due diligence on a number of candidates throughout this whole process, but in that time, I'm told that the only person that they spoke to was the sporting manager, Ruben Amorim. And what's happened since is that they've moved very, very quickly, very, very efficiently, to the point now that 4 days after Erik ten Hag was sacked by Manchester United, United have now announced that Amorim is their new head coach.
Given that there was only one man in the frame, have United had to compromise?
Slightly. So we were talking when Erik ten Hag was sacked and we knew that Ruben Amorim was the front runner to take on this job. There was talk of a €10 million release clause. Now, Sporting have since released a statement themselves saying that Manchester United have actually paid €11 million. So they've paid that little bit extra. I'm told it's nothing to do with the backroom staff. I'm told there's no problem with that. The €11 million that they are paying, which is in excess of the release clause that was in his contract initially, was to cut down the notice period. Because even if a club came in to get Ruben Amorim and paid the €10 million release clause, there was still a 30-day notice period that he had to serve with the club before he could move. Manchester United felt that was far too long. They wanted to get him as soon as possible. They probably wanted him in today. But they've managed to compromise with Sporting Lisbon by paying that extra bit of money. And with that extra bit of money, they've cut down that 30-day notice period to 10 days. So now Ruben Amorim is going to start his job on November the 11th. That's at the start of the international break. So it feels like a clean break for both Manchester United and for Sporting Lisbon. What that means is that he'll still be in charge for 3 more games for Sporting. The first one is tonight, which is quite significant. It's the first one since the announcement. So it'll be interesting to see the kind of reaction he's going to get from the Sporting fans ahead of their game against Estrella. Then on Tuesday, it's a small matter of a Champions League game at home to Manchester City.
Could be an immediate United hero, couldn't he?
He could. It's going to be his final home game in charge of Sporting, and it comes against Manchester United's noisy neighbours, Manchester City, in the Champions League. And then his final game, this has got a bit of symmetry to it as well, is going to be next weekend, and that's away to Braga. Now, Braga is the team that he managed before he went to Sporting. Now, Sporting themselves had to pay money and compensation to get him out of his Braga contract, rather like Manchester United have had to do to get him out of Sporting.
Is it significant that he is a head coach and not the manager?
It's a good question. Look, Manchester United have got this structure with Ineos. They've got a chief executive in Omar Barada. They've got a sporting director in Dan Ashworth. They've got a technical director in Jason Wilcox. And in that structure, the man who is going to be overseeing the first team is usually a head coach. Now, if you go back to what happened with Erik ten Hag, when he joined United in 2022, he signed a 3-year contract with a 1-year option as the manager of Manchester United, because United didn't have this structure in place at the time. Now, when they did that post-season review and decided to stick with Erik ten Hag, everyone thought, right, they're really backing the manager. In one way they were, because they kept him. And they said, we want you to do well and we want this to work out. We've seen clearly that it hasn't worked out. But what they did at the time was exercise the 1-year option in his contract on the same terms with the same title. So he remained as the manager of Manchester United, whereas we do know that with the structure Ineos have, they want a head coach in situ. Now, people will ask, when it comes to being a head coach, what kind of say are you going to have on recruitment and on transfers? Because we've heard from Portuguese journalists that this guy here, Ruben Amorim, wants total control or big control when it comes to recruitment. Will he decide on his own who comes in and who goes out at Manchester United? 100% no. Will Manchester United sign players that Ruben Amorim doesn't want? 100% no. It is going to be a committee decision, rather like a lot of the big European clubs work, because they have a structure in place with all of these positions and a head coach who picks the team and coaches the team, but will still have a say on the table when it comes to recruitment. So he will have a say, but it is going to be as part of this structure now.
Now, Dharmesh, we've been here before, since Sir Alex Ferguson, with manager after manager after manager. I think he's sixth, isn't he? Has he got the credentials to do the job?
It's a good question. You can look at this in one of two ways. And one reason maybe Manchester United fans might be concerned is that he's only been managing in the Portuguese league. So is that a good enough step up to go from the Portuguese league to the Premier League? But you've also got to remember, he is a manager who has been coveted by plenty of big clubs, both in England and in Europe. And if you look at his record with Sporting Lisbon, when he joined them in June 2020, they just finished fourth in the league. They finished 22 points behind the leaders that season before he joined. His first full season at Sporting Lisbon, he wins the title. He won the title again last season. So those credentials, you would think, actually, he's seen a club that's notoriously done really, really well in their country, but then has just fallen on quite bad times. That first title that they'd won when he first came in was their first title in 19 years. You can kind of draw parallels with what's happening at Manchester United, joining a club that hasn't really won the league. They haven't won the league since 2013. They seem to be on the wane, but he's got experience of trying to lift a club from doldrums like that into a position like that. And how about this? You mentioned the 6 permanent managers. He is the 6th one since Sir Alex Ferguson retired in 2013. The last time Manchester United employed a permanent manager in November was in 1986. And who was it? Alex Ferguson.
No pressure, Ruben. Dharmesh Sheth, thank you very much.